This story is about a holy sword, a special blade that changes to match its wielder's abilities. Only one has been chosen to wield it, the holy swordsman Kylie. Bowing before the king, Kale accepts the royal vow as the holy swordsman, pledging loyalty and a life devoted to protecting this land's people. Hand to his chest, he solemnly promises to serve the nation. The king then announces the next phase in Kylie path to claiming the holy sword. As he stands, he hears people whispering about him, how he's Lord Stat's adopted son, famous at the training school, and almost unanimously chosen by the council as the holy swordsman. Their praise embarrasses him, especially when they say that at only 20, he's important and that Lord Stat must be proud. Hearing this, Kylie quietly resolves to become a holy swordsman truly worthy of his adopted father. At the king's command, he steps forward to draw the sword he feels drawn to, remembering that the holy sword and its wielder naturally attract each other. After scanning the many blades, he finally chooses a bright, large sword. The moment he lifts it, a massive burst of light erupts, shocking everyone as the sword instantly transforms into a cute, gorgeous girl who grabs his hands, calling him her lord and showing how desperately she had been waiting for him. Kylie, who had expected a holy sword and not a girl, instinctively steps back in shock. Noticing his confusion, she moves closer with concern, gently checking his forehead to see if he's all right. Seeing this, the king rises with a shocked expression, because a sword turning into a girl means Kale has awakened the demon sword. But Kale, completely mesmerized by her cuteness, cannot hear anyone. Instead, he desperately stares at her, admiring her more than any girl in the world. With gentle humility, she thanks him. As he keeps admiring her again and again, she finally taps him to make him stop. Everyone is left confused, and the king grows furious when Kale addresses him to announce he is resigning from his duty as a swordsman. Instead of serving the country, he decides to devote his entire life to this demon girl. As the day passes, he ends up shouting from his jail cell, stubbornly begging to be freed so he can spread the demon girl's beauty to the whole world. Kylie finally falls silent when his adopted father, Falstadt, the commander of the Holy Swordsmen, orders him to stop shouting. He scolds Kale for the foolishness of refusing the king's command, reminding him how he acted without considering his father's position. Even though he apologizes, Falt remains angry, seeing no real regret in his eyes. Changing the subject, he asks Kale for the true reason behind this behavior, knowing him for years and certain he would never do something so reckless without a strong reason. When Stat asks why he's protecting the sword girl, Kylie, annoyed, says he loves her and only wants to keep her safe. Curious about Kale's earlier worried tone, Stat questions him, and Kale smiles, saying he wasn't bothered by his behavior, he just wanted to protect her. He explains that she can take human form and possesses power far beyond the holy sword, leaving behind legends of the demon sword's danger. In times of war, she was both feared and revered. But in this peaceful era, she is unnecessary and could only be a threat, so she must be returned to her resting place in stone. Kylie reveals the main reason. If she were only a sword, there would be no problem. But magic awakened her. He is not ready to see her sealed again for another 100 years, until she loses her mind and consciousness. Hearing this, Stott becomes irritated by Kale's unruly nature. He calmly clarifies that his pledge before the king was merely a ruse to buy time in the cell, to stop her being returned without her consent, while Stott worked out a solution. Hearing this, he looks away and informs him that he will take custody of the demon girl, making it safe to say his sudden madness has been checked. He's impressed by his father's careful planning, and his surprise grows when Stott firmly tells him to control the demon sword, explaining that she is dangerous as a sword, but as long as she stays human and hurts no one, she won't be treated as a threat. Then he grants him 3 years to keep the girl in human form, allowing her to exist as a human rather than a sword. He also permits Kale to punish anyone who tries to misuse the demon sword. Turning away, he commands Kale to protect her until the end, as he loves her, while Kale humbly thanks his father for all his unwavering support. As Stott leaves, Kale hears hurried steps. The sword girl runs to him, worried. Her presence makes him blush, and he quickly covers his mouth. Noticing this, she looks down and timidly asks if he doesn't want to talk to her. He quickly denies it, and a bit helpless, admits that her mere presence leaves him flustered because of how adorable she is. He just can't keep his emotions steady. When she innocently asks again if he's unwell, his heartbeat kicks up even faster, and he mutters that whatever he's feeling is confusing, even for him. Noticing his state, she grows a little gloomy and gently asks if she may speak with him. When he nods, she brightens instantly, almost glowing with joy. She then quietly mentions that Stott told her he landed in jail for trying to protect her. Though he tries to brush it off, she reaches through the bars and takes his hands, thanking him with a shy, flushed smile for standing up for her. But when she leans in so close, his flustered reaction only makes her worry more. He quickly looks away, trying to steady himself, then turns back and gently asks for her real name, laughing that Maken-chan doesn't suit her. He introduces himself properly as Kylie Stat. She softly replies that she'll call him Kylie-sama, and her adorable sincerity leaves him dazzled all over again. She finally murmurs her name in the ancient tongue, hesitating as she admits she's afraid he might dislike it. But he immediately reassures her, almost too passionately, that he could never hate anything about her, especially when she worries so much for him. She grows anxious again at his flustered state, but he steadies his smile, cheeks still warm, and gently urges her to tell him without fear. She finally tells him her name, Leash Blood, explaining that leash means abundant life. When he admires it, she shyly suggests he call her by that alone. But when he insists on knowing her full name, thinking it might be just as lovely, she quietly reveals that blood means soaked in blood. The meaning leaves him stunned. She proudly explains that her name reflects her purpose, to seek battle, blood, and claim life. His shock deepens when she innocently asks him to let her dye the world in fresh blood. The next day, Kale shows her the Holy Swordsman's training ground. While she is impressed, he feels gloomy, haunted by bad memories. Their conversation halts as Stott approaches from behind, allowing them to use the training grounds to test the demon sword's abilities. Once he confirms she is not dangerous, they will place her in Kale's custody without interference. Knowing this, Kale eagerly imagines a simple, quiet life with her in the countryside if she can prove herself harmless today. As she moves closer, she reassures him about her abilities. Though he is excited and captivated by her cuteness, she immediately transforms into the sword at his command. Looking at the long, elegant sword, which seems more like a holy blade than a demon sword, Stott angrily asks if he doubts him. Kylie smiles innocently and says she is beautiful even as a sword. He is shocked when Leash, even as a sword, seriously warns him not to admire her cuteness. She explains firmly that for combat, every aspect matters: the ability to cut through anything, strike with precision, withstand any force, and a design that makes handling effortless. Though he is captivated by her playful chatter even in combat form, and still mesmerized by her cuteness despite her being a sword, she insists again that he not call her cute. Hearing this, Stat, annoyed, suggests they save their flirting for later. During the abilities test, she confidently suggests arranging the perfect reward for his powers, which he admirably accepts. She then explains that, like a true holy sword, she can follow the same rules and asks him to channel his magical power into her so she can adapt to his needs. Grabbing the sword, he prepares to test it and swings it toward the target. He is stunned when the blade cleaves the entire sea. Shocked, he asks her to return to human form for a moment. When he questions her sudden action, she explains that she only used a small portion of his magic to make the shot. He remains speechless, struggling to believe it was only a small fraction of her power, though he tries to reassure himself that she could do even more. He forces a smile, but witnessing her immense strength makes him realize how dangerous she truly is. Before he can say more, he is stunned as Stott interrupts and orders his banishment from the royal capital. Leaving the city by carriage, he sees her gloomy face and happily assures her that they will return one day. She sadly admits that she is disappointed at not being able to take even a single life in the town, still full of people. Though he is still captivated by her cuteness, he realizes just how dangerous she truly is for the country as a demon sword. On their way, she spots a deer with its baby and carefully asks him which one she should target to reduce stress, knowing she could strike from a long distance. Seeing her intense eagerness to fight, he shyly covers his face, captivated once again by her cuteness. She goes on to describe in detail how she had slain countless enemies and bathed in their blood for the lord she served, which pleased him and made battle a joy. Though he is impressed by her power, he begins to worry, realizing he must restrain her from fighting for the sake of her own life. He gently calls her over and politely asks her to stop thinking about killing anyone. When her expression darkens, he quickly grows worried and gently tells her that even though she's a demon's sword, she doesn't need to shed blood. He cares about her too much, but she completely misunderstands, thinking he only wants her to avoid killing in this town because he plans to massacre people in the next one. Hearing how eager she sounds, his worry deepens. If she keeps talking like this, she'll make him seem like a serial killer. Trying to correct her, he points outside to the villagers and explains that, even though he's strong as a lord's sword, it isn't right for him to kill anyone. As a holy sword, people respect him. Leash innocently comments that long ago, killing many could make someone a hero, but he gently tells her that time has passed. Realizing she doesn't fit this era's battles, he sits down in front of her and calmly asks her to lend him her strength only when they face a truly powerful enemy because he cares for her deeply. Hesitantly, she nods, and he exhales, regaining control of the situation. She humbly thanks him and raises her small finger, asking him to promise to use her in tough battles against enemies, which he immediately agrees to, still admiring her cuteness. After a long journey, they finally arrive at the local city of Deba. As they walk, he explains that the city hosts many demi-humans. Though humans and demi-humans often fought in the past, they formed alliances to defeat demon beasts and began interacting peacefully. Curious, he asks if she knows about them, and she excitedly admits she has slain many demi-humans before. Alarmed, he quickly decides to change the topic. But as he calmly adds that the demi-humans are very powerful. Seeing her move toward them to attack, he immediately stops her, correcting himself that they are weak now and merely running their businesses here. Seeing her gloomy face, he worries for her but doesn't want to become a killer, so he changes the topic and suggests they eat something good. Noticing her curiosity about food, he is charmed by her cuteness and decides to first register at the Adventurers Guild, then enjoy a delicious meal. Walking toward the guild, he notices someone aiming a bow at them and immediately carries Leash in his arms. Suddenly, an arrow flies dangerously close. After making sure she's unharmed, he seriously reminds what Stat had told him about people trying to exploit demon swords for their adventures, while shocked at such an early attack. Seeing a note attached to the arrow apologizing and explaining his duty to watch over them, he panics and scans the area, wondering where the surveillance is. Another arrow lands nearby, and he hurriedly hides Leash behind him. Retrieving the first arrow, he reads the message apologizing for not revealing their location. Soon after, another arrow delivers a guild map along with a delicious peach pie in case they wanted a snack. Kylie, frustrated with the Yabushi, shouts for a direct conversation, but another arrow arrives, explaining that although he wants to talk, Lord Stat has ordered him to oversee their safety. The arrow discussion ends there. Annoyed by this meddlesome man his father sent for their security, Kale jokingly decides to call him temporary Yabumi-chan. Finally at the guild, the receptionist hands him a guild card as proof of his status as an adventurer. She humbly asks him to verify his rank and status. Seeing the receptionist staring at him, she notices his confused expression and grows concerned. She explains that most adventurers have troubled backgrounds or personal issues, but he seems fine. So why does he want to become one? Hesitantly, he reflects on his own personal struggles, then carefully reads an arrow message reminding him not to share any information about demon swords, admitting quietly that he has his own issues. When the receptionist asks about registering Leash, he is confused, thinking she would be under his name and registration might not be needed, but seeing her politely insist that she wants to register to always be with him, he agrees. Suddenly, another arrow lands nearby, making him worry about whether she will actually be registered. He looks around, puzzled at the source, but finds a message attached detailing Leash's background. Relieved, he hands it to her so she can complete her registration. Finally, they stop at the bulletin board to choose a request suitable for her. Looking at the bulletin, he wants to start a request quickly due to low cash, but unsure where to begin, he decides to pick an easy one first. She happily suggests choosing the subjugation of a powerful dragon. He hesitates, knowing he cannot stop her from fighting, but also realizing how dangerous battling such a mighty dragon would be. Before they could take any steps, a rude man snatches the card, teasing Kale that fighting a dragon is impossible for a mere boy. He mocks further, suggesting that, as a rich man's hobby, Kale should stick to hunting something small. While another person steps in to stop the man, Roydell, from scaring the newcomer, he proudly declares that he's just educating him, as the boy is clearly an idiot. Hearing all this, Kale feels gloomy, having faced such people often, so he doesn't feel angry. But when Roydell overconfidently declares himself the strongest adventurer in the world, Kale grows worried and shouts for him to stop. But Roydell stubbornly continues claiming he is the strongest, and Kale, increasingly worried, shouts for him to stop, explaining that this could provoke his cute demon sword. Before he can finish, Leash gently taps him with a finger, silently suggesting he use her to strike Roydell since he is the strongest. Although mesmerized by her cuteness, he doesn't want to grant her wish to bathe in blood by killing Roydell, so he innocently tries to convince her, explaining that anyone who declares themselves the strongest isn't truly so. When she innocently asks whether he had claimed the same earlier, he hesitantly smiles, insisting it was just an exceptional case. Hearing the insults, Roydell becomes furious and challenges Kale, certain he can win. Kale, knowing he's stronger, accepts with a smile and grabs his sword, saying that adventuring is not a hobby, but his purpose. As he steps forward, Leash sadly tugs on his shirt, upset that he chose another sword instead of her. Feeling guilty, Kylie snaps his own sword in half as punishment for betraying her trust. Confident in his own strength, he prepares to fight barehanded. When Roydell questions his stupidity, Kale shouts that his duty is to protect Leash, and he won't use any sword without her permission. He starts explaining his plan to break Roydell's sword, but stops himself, worried about revealing more. His companion, confused, asks if he's quitting the fight and angrily offers to fight for him. But once they sense Kale's power, both back down and leave. Leash, amazed by his strength, is overjoyed. She sadly admits she doesn't want to be seen as something easily used and thrown away like the sword he broke. Worried, Kylie holds her and reassures her that she is the only sword he'll ever choose. Suddenly, a bow delivers a message teasing that it would have been more useful selling the sword than breaking it. They return to the guild and see the request board again. The receptionist apologizes for not having any requests like before, but she politely gives them a new one instead. They then enter the Adventurers Guild Lodge, surprised by how beautiful it is. Cooling magic devices, soft beds, and a large hot bath. Since the receptionist told them to wait there until the request was ready, Kale is delighted by the room. Seeing Leash confused, he explains happily that the hot tub is for relaxing and cleaning the body. When she asks if it's better than food, he is taken aback. Curious, she dips only one finger into the water. Realizing how little she knows about human life, Kale decides he needs to teach her everything properly. Excited about this life, he asks her to teach her how to take a bath, but before they can proceed, an arrow strikes him in both eyes and he collapses to the ground. Concerned, she turns to him, only to feel a gentle tap on her shoulder. A person stands there holding a short board, explaining with chalk that he has been assigned by the country to assist her. Realizing this, she relaxes, understanding that the supposed stranger is here to help her with bathing. Kylie starts shouting and sobbing, realizing that Yabumi-chan is now taking over his duty to serve her. He even feels jealous, yelling that the man might try to take her away. She immediately stops him, writing on the board that she is the girl and that no one may enter the bathroom without her permission. Now pacing around the bathroom, he cries, feeling helpless as he cannot assist her, while hearing the two girls talking as they remove her clothes. After a while, Yabumi-chan, still hidden behind her mask, taps his shoulder. He becomes annoyed when she writes on the board that she is always watching them, and further explains her duty to report everything back to the country. She clarifies that if anything improper happens to Leash, he could be deported. Annoyed by this, he grows more frustrated when she adds details about his father's faults from the report. He asks her not to make it harder for her to perform her duties, as it's already difficult to watch over both of them. Understanding the situation, he sits on the ground and apologizes. As she leaves, he seriously reflects on all the instructions. He is not allowed to use Leash as a sword or let anyone approach her. Resolving to stay calm and in control, he decides to leave with her. Even though he is struggling with his thoughts, Kale is distracted when Leash comes out wearing a loose shirt. She wipes her face and apologizes for being late because she is still not used to these things. He is stunned by how she looks and suddenly shouts in frustration. Not understanding why he's upset, she gently tells him not to be so loud because it might bother the neighbors. Trying to calm down, he decides it's time to sleep, but when he notices there is only one bed, he politely tells Leash to use it. She then suggests that he carry her in sword form in the bed for safety. When she gloomily asks if he doesn't want to be with her, he gives in, unable to resist her cuteness. Embarrassed, he turns to Yabumi-chan and asks him to shoot him with a paralyzing arrow. Yabumi-chan immediately does so. Kylie collapses to the floor. Seeing Leash worry, he apologizes and says she should sleep on the bed because he has a habit of rolling around and sleeping on the floor anyway. He knows he still isn't allowed to sleep beside her, but with his goal to protect her for the next 3 years, he quietly plans that one day they will share the same bed. The next day, he enters the guild again, his bones twitching and walking unsteadily, but reassures Leash that he is all right. He asks the receptionist about being called, as she had earlier been requested not to enter the guild. She replies that his client is waiting for him. Although he feels suspicious seeing the client completely covering her face, she is still less suspicious than Yabumi-chan. He walks forward to discuss the request. Leash and Kale first introduce themselves, and the client introduces herself as Chelis. She then politely asks if he is ready to work for her. Before starting work, Kylie asks a few subtle questions. She happily removes her mask, assuring him that he will get his answers soon. Leash is surprised to see that Chelis is a high elf. Surprised that Leash recognizes her, Chelis listens as Leash explains that she knows high elves by their magical eyes and unique hair. Hearing this, Kylie recalls that the immortals possess magical eyes and immense power. As the ancestors and pinnacle of the elves, their rarity brought constant trouble, leading them to vanish long ago. He reassures her not to worry, explaining that most people believe elves don't exist. Sharing that she is somewhat different, he suspiciously asks if her real name is Chelis. She denies it, explaining that her full name is far longer. El Chelis la foren belfonsis, argento, yerbrow, ahabment, brethont, effetude, carmignon. Before she can finish, both of them exclaim at how long her name is. Finally, Chelis asks if he accepts her request, but he remains confused, knowing that most elves are strong enough to handle any problem. Seeing their puzzled expressions, she patiently explains everything clearly. First, she asks if they understand the purpose of a high elf's life. Kylie replies that they studied some basic propositions, and she confirms, explaining that while high elves do not die of old age, they can be killed by others, so they must have a long-term life purpose. She explains that when she went to study proportions, the guard stopped her, warning of the dangers inside. Calmly, she reassures them that being an elf keeps her safe, though they smile skeptically, teasing her and suggesting she bring her parents. Annoyed, Kale declares that she truly is an elf when she nods in agreement. When he asks about visiting the guild side, she explains that while they believe her, rules allow only those accompanied by an adventurer into the dangerous zone. After hearing this, Kylie decides to accompany her, but suddenly notices Leash holding his hand and whispering not to accept the request, realizing that without a strong opponent, there's a flaw in the mission. Already captivated by her cuteness, he immediately follows Leash's orders and denies Chelis's request. Shocked that he was about to accept it, he loudly declares that he obeys Leash completely, saying that even if she claimed the sun rises from the west, her words are final for him. Now understanding the whole situation, Chelis informs them that a powerful demon beast has appeared. With Leash's approval, Kylie immediately accepts her request, while Chelis exhales in relief. Realizing that Leash is also accompanying them on this mission, Chelis happily welcomes her. After a while, as they travel through the Fabrica Mountains, Kylie becomes visibly exhausted. Seeing him, Leash grows worried, but riding her magical broom, Chelis teasingly remarks on his lack of energy even to traverse the mountains. Angrily and annoyed, he explains that he was shot with the paralyzing arrow and had to sleep on the floor, yet Chelis continues teasing him, making fun of his predicament. Seeing his exhaustion, Leash steps forward to ease his pain, explaining that as a sword, it is her duty to keep her lord in the best condition. Worried that Leash suddenly turning into the sword might scare Chelis, he hesitates. Calmly, Leash whispers that he may strike her if needed and explains how to relieve his pain without transforming. So, when she holds his hands, he is astonished as all his pain instantly vanishes. Mesmerized by this ability, he is further shocked when she reveals it is limited. He can move without pain for 28 hours, after which all accumulated pain will return at once. Annoyed, he loudly orders Yabumi-chan to spread straw on the floor once they get home, but their conversation stops. While flying on her broom, Chelis asks Kylie to let her experience high elf magic, as she is unsure about mountain climbing. He is shocked when she begins floating in the air, no longer needing to walk. He tries to convince her to use the magic for him too, but she teasingly refuses, saying her magic works for only 2 people. She happily suggests that Leash fly with her, though Leash struggles to control her clothes in the high breeze. Seeing her in this state, both shout, mesmerized by her cuteness. Realizing this, he glances at Chelis, who immediately looks away and denies saying anything. Finally, they decide to move toward their destination, aware that it could be dangerous due to the early battlefields. Seeing his confusion, she explains the ancient battle between humans and demon beasts. The power of the entities created the mountain range, and thankfully, the demon invasion was successfully prevented. Sensing something, he suspiciously asks Chelis about her intentions. With a confident smile, she uses her powers to crack the ground beneath his feet, testing his strength. Leash grows worried, but Chelis happily explains that she has no intention of harming him. Her purpose is simply to study the demon sword. Shocked by her request, he listens as Chelis proudly recalls how he broke a sword in the guild using his swordsman enchantment. He's even more surprised that she knows so much about him, especially since he's a holy swordsman without a holy sword, using Leash-sama instead. Chelis then says she only needs Leash for her demon sword research and promises not to hurt him. She gently holds his face and admits she loves Leash. She takes out a measuring tape and starts her research. When he tries to resist, she calmly binds him with soft magical ropes. Leash becomes frustrated, but Chelis sadly explains that she only wants to measure him so she can prepare beautiful gifts, assuring them both that she intends no harm. Confused, he asks Chelis if she truly likes him. She angrily declares that she does more than like her. She loves her the most. She continues measuring him while he feels relieved, assured that she intends no harm. But when the magical robes begin breaking on their own, supposedly strong enough to bind 100 orcs, Chelis is stunned. He smiles, declaring that as a holy swordsman, this is nothing for him. Using her broom's highest magic, she sends waves to resist him, threatening until death. He effortlessly counters, breaking all her magical waves, leaving her in disbelief. He explains that as a holy swordsman, he has mastered close combat, measures against magic, modern spells, and even ancient magic as a hobby. Seeing her confused expression, he steps closer and calmly shares his ability to nullify all her magic. Chelis, overwhelmed, sits gloomily on the ground. Leash, worried, hugs him tightly, confessing how terrifying it was to be measured by the tape. He grows annoyed but secretly amused, realizing her fear only shows how endearing she is. While still seeing Chelis lying on the ground, crying and calling for the leash, he loudly declares that the leash is not hers. Instead, she is the world's property. Meanwhile, the leash whispers gloomily that it belongs only to Kylie. Hearing this, Chelis angrily attacks him again, while he scolds her for her stubbornness and foolishness. But then, seeing her struck by the hemorrhoid's arrow with a message letter, and seeing him unconscious fall to the ground, he happily reads the message from Yabumi-chan, that she hadn't been able to reach her until now due to a magical barrier. Though he feels happy about the message, he also feels uneasy seeing her hit because he doesn't like fighting with girls. While he becomes worried, Leash excitedly offers to cut Chelis in two, or even into 1,000 pieces, but he immediately stops her from doing so. Back in the room, he affectionately watches Leash sleeping, knowing she has experienced so much today and is extremely tired. He thinks that if people could see Leash's calm, sleeping face, it would bring hope and make them feel full of life. Then, opening the room door, he happily asks for Chelis's remarks, finding her sitting wearily with tired hands at her side. She looks annoyed at hearing the same admiration for Leash repeated over the past few hours, but as he teasingly asks whether she disagrees, she can't help but share in his sentiment, admitting that indeed, Leash is the cutest in the whole world. Hearing her, he smiles, and then gets straight to the point, asking her to share all the information she has about the demon swords. But seeing her stubbornness in refusing to obey, he pretends not to hear her and clenches his fists. But she immediately realizes his intention and stops him from doing so. When he offers her a reward to follow Leash in exchange for answering his question, she reluctantly agrees, annoyed at having to grant permission just to follow her. He also allows her to stay with Leash until she feels comfortable. Then, excitedly, she asks to buy some clothes and accessories for Leash, and he amiably agrees on the condition that it will make her even cuter. Finally, after she agrees to answer his question, he seriously asks her about the method to remove the demon sword threat. She sadly shares that all the tales and legends of the demon swords end in tragedy, as destroying the swords is the only way to eliminate the threat. Hearing this, he becomes deeply worried and gloomy. Then she further explains that the demon swords automatically generate an infinite amount of magic power once the demon awakens. Even putting the sword back into stone is useless. It does not reduce their threat. As a holy swordsman, he also knows that the holy sword uses humans as its raw material. She continues, explaining how, to defeat the demons, young girls are sacrificed to create the powerful swords. After using the girls for their own purposes, and after they become demon swords, their powers are condensed into a threat that can finally be eliminated. Hearing this, he seriously asks Chelis about having a perfect life with Leash, a life with the perfect ending. But when Chelis shockingly tries to share the tragic past of Leash and her friends, he immediately stops her, as he has no issue with the past as long as he manages to live a happy life with her. Seeing her shocked expression, he comes up with an idea. By proving the harmless nature of the swords, they could solve the problem. But when Chelis denies this, saying it would not be enough, he calmly suggests another approach, emphasizing the positive qualities of the swords, such as healing, prolonging life, and preventing aging, and showing how their powers can be used for the best purposes. While she is annoyed at his optimism, he calmly explains that this very quality is why he sees Leash as so cute. He calmly calls for Yabumi-chan, and when an arrow lands near Chelis in response, he notices she becomes frightened. He then tells Yabumi-chan to share their entire conversation with his father and the others, hoping they will reconsider destroying the swords once they understand their value. Another arrow arrives with a shocked message from Yabumi-chan, delivered in a way that makes him seem smarter than he looks. Chelis, annoyed by their strange exchange, asks what's going on, but he just ignores her. In the end, he tells her she can forget all her past mistakes if she can prove that Leash is not dangerous. Then he comes to the point, knowing that Chelis also wants a good ending for Leash. But when she shares that she would take the sword from him, he gently comes close and calmly explains his purpose: to protect her and to arrange a perfect life for her. Realizing that he cannot achieve this alone, he kneels before her and asks for her help. He is shocked by her emotion and gloomily shares how, despite serving humans for years, their extreme powers have caused them to be shunned. In trying to protect them, they inadvertently bring tragedy to their owners. So in the end, both sides suffer a bad ending. He gloomily explains that he does not want this, when she cheerfully decides to devote her long life to creating a happy ending, a goal that matches Kale's own. They promise to help each other achieve it. Then, nervously, she asks him to untie her hands so they can seal their agreement with a proper handshake. He calmly refuses and tells her the conversation is over and that he should go to bed. He stretches and calls for Yambushi-chan's help, but before he can finish, he's already struck by a paralyzing arrow, along with a message telling him to enjoy doing this for her sake. Seeing how worried she looks, he lies on the floor and explains, while twitching, that he can only sleep properly on the floor. She still doesn't understand why. The next day, Kylie happily informs them that Chelis is coming along. Despite her usual gloominess, Leash still agrees. But when Chelis hugs her tightly, showing happiness at touching her, Leash, with an annoyed face, tries to move away. Seeing both of them together, he feels happy, knowing both girls are having a good time, even enjoying how Chelis can make Leash show disgusted expressions. While Chelis, still blushing, hugs her tightly, he politely suggests that she ask to be released. But Leash, much angrier, uses her force, declaring that she only follows Kylie's orders. He is shocked to see that, within seconds, Leash makes a sudden move, placing both her legs on Chelis's neck. Chelis cries out in pain, and it seems as if either her bones or the spirit of the high elf is broken by the force. While he tries to control the situation, he can't help but admire Leash's incredible strength, which he remarks comes from learning from previous lords. It's so easy for her to overpower an elf like Chelis. As he struggles to manage the chaos, he continues to admire her. Meanwhile, Chelis angrily shouts, trying to use her protection and healing magic, but Leash angrily counters, neutralizing all her spells. Now he realizes that this is not a simple happy moment between the two girls. Seeing Leash lying on the floor, he immediately intuits that, despite how important Chelis might be to him, Leash is the one who truly matters. Then he calmly reminds her that, since Chelis is not very strong, there is no purpose in harming her. Hearing this, Chelis becomes extremely annoyed and angry, even as he continues trying to convince her that a strong person should control her powers and stop the violence. Seeing that Leash does not get her point, he further explains in simple words that she should just consider Chelis like a dog and treat her politely. Chelis angrily shouts for them not to use such words for her, but Leash pounces, teasing that the dog is barking now. Both ignore her protests, and he calmly tells her to control herself like a dog, without using a whip. Her anger immediately fades when Leash politely taps her head, admiring her good nature. Chelis is mesmerized, enjoying the gentle touch so much that she stops speaking when Leash covers her mouth, teasing her to be quiet if she wants to be patted. Suddenly, an arrow arrives with a message calling them all idiots. Kylie realizes that people find happiness in different ways, and since he and Chelis share the same sense of joy, he decides never to interrupt her moments of happiness again.
Here I am, know it's been a while. I was in denial about my love. Here I stand, I know I walked away. Had to find the person I